Hello and welcome to this 15-minute full body Pilates mat flow. We're going to start laying on our back doing some pelvic curls. We have 30 seconds of pelvic curls rolling up into your shoulder bridge. Just take a moment to warm up that spine. Keep those legs nice and parallel, so ankles, knees and hips nice and aligned as you peel that pelvis off the mat, lifting those hips, rolling into your bridge here. Take a moment to breathe into the ribs and then roll all the way back down to the mat, coming into that neutral position. Next up, you're going to lift those hips up into your bridge and we go into glute pulses. So the hips lift here, you lower halfway and then pulse, lift up again, squeezing those hamstrings, squeezing those glutes as you exhale, lift, inhale, lower. Just lower halfway and then you squeeze to pulse and lift up again. Just warming up those hamstrings and glutes here, warming up through the back of the legs, and then we'll be coming down for some abdominal work into chest lifts. A few more glute pulses here, lifting and lowering those hips. And then get yourself ready, you'll lower all the way down, hands behind the head. Let's move to chest lifts. Lifting and lowering the head and the shoulders off the mat while keeping that neutral pelvis as we are warming up through those upper abdominals. Those elbows are wide, framing your face, shoulders plugged down the back, and then the head is heavy in those hands behind your head, not tucking that pelvis as you just lift the head and the shoulders off the mat. We're warming up those upper abdominals and then we're getting ourselves ready for some lower ab work. We'll lay down on your mat now, arms beside the body, lift those legs to tabletop, off we go with the single leg toe tap. So know the lower abs really have to stay engaged to keep your pelvis neutral as you're moving through the hips, hinging from the hips, tapping the right foot and the left foot down towards the mat. It doesn't have to touch the mat, you're just aiming those feet to the front edge of your mat, making sure we're not tipping that pelvis, arching through the back. Almost done here, then we're coming into a bit of rotation. The legs will come to tabletop, glue your legs together as you take them over to the left and to the right. A little bit of rotation through that pelvis now. Keep those legs together, the feet and the knees shouldn't move here. Lift that hip, but anchor both shoulders down to the mat. So you're just getting that rotation through the lower part of the waist, the lower part of your body, while the head and the shoulders remain on the mat. Little bit of a twist to lift your hip, take the knee and the feet with you as you move side to side. And then now we'll rotate through the upper part of your body. You can bring your hands behind your head. Let's go into crisscross. You're going to twist the shoulder across your body to the opposite knee as you extend those legs out along the mat. You can stay with a bent leg here or stretch each leg as you rotate. Try and keep both shoulders off the mat as you pass through center and then twist. Reaching those legs nice and long. Use that exhale, inhale, come to center, exhale, rotate. Those legs go straight out, trying to get as much twist through the upper abs, lower the head and the chest. Now we're coming into lower abs, we're flutter kicking those legs. So flutter those legs, they kick down and up here as straight as possible. You can always have a soft bend in your knee. Try and keep that pelvis neutral, the spine neutral on the mat. Those hands can come underneath the glutes, resting on that sacrum or just beside the body. Don't lower the legs so far where the pelvis tips, your lower back arches and you pull into that lower back. Just keep the range as small as you need. Take a moment here, we're coming into hamstring pull. Those legs will split. You'll scissor, pulse, pulse and switch, pulse, pulse and switch. That chest is lifted and you're pulling those hands against the back of your calf, trying to lift that chest to your thigh and pull that thigh to the chest, stretching through the back of the hamstring, splitting those legs. Again, as straight as possible with the legs, lifting through that chest. A little bit more here, laying on our back. And then we're going to come up and over for some mountain climbers. So you'll come into plank now, and we'll start doing regular mountain climbers, pulling those knees in towards your chest as fast or as slow as you can go here. Don't drop the head, don't pull into that lower back and drop the pelvis or sink into those shoulders. Stay strong. You can switch it up by twisting the hips here, coming into cross-body mountain climbers for your last few seconds of this exercise. Little bit of a twist through that pelvis, getting into those obliques. Almost done with these mountain climbers. Stay strong on those hands and take a breath here. Get yourself ready, lower to your forearms, into your forearm plank, adding the knee taps if you want to, just bending and straightening those legs, or you can stay just nice and steady in a forearm plank. If you're bending and straightening those legs, make sure you don't lift and lower the hips. A nice straight spine, pull the belly in and up. Squeezing those glutes, just tap your knees to the floor and then straighten your legs. Almost done with this forearm plank. Just a few more seconds and then we'll set ourselves up back on your hands for your leg plank walking. So plank nice and strong. You can always drop to the knee. You're lifting the left leg, lifting the right leg up behind you. Again, the hips don't lift. You don't drop those hips, sink into the shoulders here. Just work that hamstring and glute just to lift the foot off the floor, tap it back down. Lift your other foot, tap it back down. So nice and steady through the torso as we do this walking with our legs. Staying strong in our plank. This is our last one before we lower down to prone. Get yourself ready here. Drop to your knees. Lay yourself all the way down to your belly. We're coming into back extension. You're going to lift and lower through the upper back. Lift the head off the mat, shoulders off the mat. You can reach those arms behind you. Turn the palms up to really lift out of the shoulders here. The legs stay on the mat, but the belly's pulling in and up. It's just those upper back extensors having to lift you up off your mat, and then you lower back down with the exhale. Inhale, lift, exhale, lower. And we'll come into swimming now. Let's get those legs moving. Lift them up and paddle them out. You can stay lifted through the upper part of the body or lower your forehead to the floor, but your legs are swimming. A little flutter kick here. We did this on our back earlier. Now we are working those hamstrings and glutes. Your belly still has to pull in and up off your mat to keep that pelvis steady. Plug those shoulders down, lift up through the upper back as you kick out your legs. Inhale and exhale as we swim those legs. Almost done. Then we'll lower your legs, come into some arm crosses. So behind your back, let's get those triceps working. We lift those arms and we cross them over one another, kind of scissoring your arms just behind your back there. You don't have to cross those hands, just reach those arms, lift them up. You can lift up through the back of the head and the shoulders, not into the lower back. Those hands crisscross over the bottom here. Work those triceps and shoulders. Almost done here for this arm and shoulder work. And then you will lower all the way down, legs wide, arms wide. We're coming into skydiver. Pull in, open out, lower down. Inhale, lift, elbows pull into the ribs as your legs close together. Open the legs, open your arms, lower to the mat. Inhale and pull in, exhale, open out to lower down. Only lift the legs and the shoulders as high as you can without pulling into that lower back, even if you need to separate this movement by lifting the legs and then lifting the upper body, or you can lift everything in and together. Almost done. Then we're coming into full swim. Reach your arms, reach those legs, lift everything up and swim the legs out, swim those arms out. Make sure that head is looking down at the mat. You still have length through the back of the head as we paddle arms. Nice and strong with those legs and arms here. Nice and stable through the pelvis, through that torso as we flutter those legs and arms. Lifting higher, reaching in opposition. Take a moment to breathe in and out with this swimming exercise and rest for a moment. We'll come forearm plank now. Hold this side forearm plank. If you would like to add the twist, just a little bit of a rotation through the shoulder and the upper part of the body there with that rib and thoracic spine, you can then thread that arm underneath you and reach it up to the ceiling. You can always lower that bottom leg to the mat if you need a bit more support underneath you, making sure the ribs don't drop and sink underneath you. You stay strong on that forearm, strong through that underneath shoulder. Almost done with this side. Get yourself ready, flip yourself over. We've got to do it on the other side. Off you go. You can thread that arm through underneath you. Lift that underneath rib cage to make space for your arm as it threads underneath you. Just a little twist through that thoracic spine. Try and keep those legs long, legs together, or drop that knee to the mat, but stay lifted, strong through that bottom shoulder. Add the head and neck rotation here as well. Looking up, reaching that arm to the ceiling or to the sky if you're outside, and then thread underneath you, a little bit of a twist. Rest for a moment, back on hands and knees. This is a bit of active recovery in our bird dog here. We're reaching opposite arm and opposite leg. Extending here, just find your balance, find your stability in this quadruped position. Reach that arm overhead without the shoulder creeping up to the ear, so you plug down through the back of the shoulder as your leg lifts without the pelvis tipping. Active hamstring and glute here to reach that leg long and lift it up, pull it back underneath you, bring that hand to the mat. All right, now for some side kneeling work. We are lifting and lowering that top leg. You can always do this from a side lying position, otherwise you're on your knee on that hand, nice and aligned in this side position as we just lift and lower that leg in parallel. It goes up and down, tapping that mat, lifting about hip height, getting into your outer thigh here. Those hip adductors have to lift and lower your leg in parallel. Almost done with this kneeling work. And then we'll be dropping it down into a side lying position. Work your inner thigh. The bottom leg lifts and lowers now. That top leg can be in front or behind your bottom leg. Try and stay in this nice side lying position. That leg is in line with the hips are stacked, shoulders are stacked. Lifting and lowering through that inner thigh. Think about that femur bone lifting and lowering. Then the lower leg and foot will follow. Almost done with this inner thigh. Lift and lower here. And then we'll be coming for a little bit more outer thigh work. You can come up onto your forearm, bending that lower leg, and we circle that top leg. Getting into that outer thigh here, circles, tiny circles through that hip forwards for 15 seconds. Nice and lifted through that underneath rib in this forearm position. Reverse your circles now for 15 seconds. That heel, knee and hip and shoulder stay nice and aligned as we circle, getting that leg hip height if possible. Tiny circles, keeping that pelvis steady. Almost done. And rest. All right, coming to a plank as we transition. We're just doing a few shoulder taps here before moving to the other side. So you're tapping the left shoulder and the right shoulder. In this plank position, you can come down to those knees if you need to. Just a little bit of full body isometric contraction through that body as we lift the hand, tapping, testing our balance as we move from the left to the right here. And then we'll be coming to that kneeling position for the other side. Come to your knees, extend your other leg. We're working that top leg with the lift and lower. On that knee, looking down towards your hand if you need to release any tension through that head and neck. Make sure the top shoulder doesn't rotate, the top hip stays stacked right underneath your bottom hip. That foot is reaching out from the hip as well, lifting and lowering along the mat. Work that outer thigh, lift that leg, but don't collapse into the underneath side. Don't let that hip drop as your leg lifts. Coming all the way down to side lying here. The top leg can bend in front of your bottom leg. Get that inner thigh lift and lower with that bottom leg now. Nice and long. I like to flex my foot here just to think about that heel lifting, but it's all coming from the very top of the legs. Lifting that lower leg in the inner thigh. Working it, keeping steady as we are side lying here. And then get yourself ready. We'll be coming up onto your forearm if you want to for your leg circling with your top leg. Lift out of that underneath side. Make sure the hips stay stacked as we do tiny circles in one direction. Keeping that leg hip height if possible as we circle. And reverse your circles to finish. Last 15 seconds of little circles here with that top leg reaching out of its hip. And then we will be done. Very nice work. Lower that leg. You can roll onto your back for a figure 4 stretch here, or whatever stretch you need, just to release through those hips. Stretch out through your outer thigh. Big deep breath into that figure 4 stretch after all of that abduction work. And switch those legs over. Turn out that knee and flex the foot here. You can always take the hands behind that thigh or just rest those hands on the leg here. Big deep breath. You can bend those knees into the chest. Give yourself a hug here, then roll yourself up to a seated position. Nice work, guys. See you soon.